Debbie, remind me to tell people if they do not want their faces on the video, to please shut off their camera.
Okay.
If I don't say that, okay, we are live now.
Okay. I hit
All
the
right.
okay on my end.
Yeah, so we've got 68 people. Let's wait
69.
until exactly 1:01,
Okay.
and then you can start letting people in. And okay, yeah, why don't you start letting people in?
Sure. Okay. Here we go. And don't forget to remind them.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I know you've heard this before, but I enjoy this. I just love to see all the faces popping up. Great to see Joyce out there, Joan, and just wow. It's like happy hour and coffee and conversation all rolled into one here. All right. Lots of people. Note the meeting is being transcribed. Uh, and we do have a live video being broadcast right now of this call to our YouTube channel that is located at NWSOFA.org. That is our website. And you just click on the link that says YouTube screen, and you'll find this being broadcast. There's about a 35-second delay up there. So if you have to go to the bathroom, or if you have to jump off and answer the phones or talk to some friends, you can come back and you can actually pick up there live to see what is going on. So that is great. Thank you all for joining today. Looks like it's going to be a good group. And we have a subject today that, although it's 3 weeks in the making, it is so relevant. It is a top conversation of coffee and conversation, and on our unhappy happy hour. Ed Spire is presenting Federal Shutdown. Why are we here? Prognosis. And Ed, do you have a few words before? We're still letting people in, so we want to get everybody in as many as we can before we start.
Well, Bill, I think the right thing to do for the moment is for you to say a few words from our sponsor and let these folks know about NWSOFA. I mean, a lot of people here already know about our organization, but there might be some new ones. So why don't you tell us about NWSOFA before we start?
All right, I have 50 slides that can do that, so no problem at all. And I see that Ori is on, and Ori says, I have seen these things so many times. Oh my goodness. All right. Debbie, can you see my screen?
I can.
Great. Well, folks, this is NWSOFA, which stands for Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action. We are an indivisible chapter located at the land beyond O'Hare. That's the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And we are one of 2,500 indivisible chapters across the U.S. Every one of those little dots there aren't cities. Those are where we are located. And some of these areas like Chicago and Minneapolis and Detroit and New York and San Francisco and LA and up in Seattle, you can't even see those areas because there's so many dots. We are adding 4 to 7 chapters a day. That is an amazing thing.
Bill, I don't see your slides. Am I
Oh,
not seeing something I should see?
I'm
uh,
seeing them. I am seeing them. Are you
Okay,
minimized, Ed?
not now.
Okay.
okay. Well, for those of you who can see my slides, great. Those that you can't, I'll kind of talk about them as we go. NWSOFA is organized on the twin snowflake principle. You can see them up here now. On the right-hand side in the turquoise are all of our issue teams, and on the left-hand side are all of our communications team. On that right-hand side, we'll kind of go around the horn. Starting at the very top, we have gun violence prevention, healthcare reform, immigration reform, social justice, going clockwise around, stand with women, our fiscal and economics group, our election outreach, both the federal, state, and local, climate change, which is this next week, Tuesday night. And then we have ROD, which is who is presenting tonight, Ed Spire from Restore Our Democracy. And they actually have two groups. One is on voter rights, elections, everything to do with voting. And then they have the issues of the day, Rod. It was confronting disinformation. Tonight, it's going to be about the shutdown. And then on the inside of that turquoise screen, you'll see 9 new, that's the right word, new groups: Sorting Soup, Vision Forward, our protest that we're doing almost weekly, our candidate interviews, which we have this next Wednesday on the Illinois 9, our legislative update, our how-to hands-on tech reviews that goes on weekly, our Discord, and our Truth Brigade shop, which we're changing this next week a little bit, and then our sharing our stories. All new groups headed up by a amazing group of people, now 30, all volunteers from across the country, not just here, but across the country. Uh, the organization now has 9,600 members locally and 23,000 on Zoom nationally. So, as the organization has evolved this last year, many of the national leaders have stepped up and now are helping NWSOFA, a local chapter, expand its Zoom national presence. So it's really cool. Two very cool things we have. We now have a Substack that is out there. It's called progressive123.substack.com. It's we post daily. It's usually from our coffee and conversation. But every time we have an event like today's event, we will post that up also. And you can see all the different groups that we have on there. We've been into this about a month. We also have what's called now a link tree. If you take a picture with your phone or scan that QR code, it takes you to this links tree, which then allows you to go to our website, to ask to become a member, to go to our Substack, to our Blue Sky, or to our live YouTubes. Very cool. One of the newest things that we've been doing. Well, folks, tonight it is Ed Spire talking, taking questions, and just in general having a conversation with you about the federal shutdown, why it happened, where we are, what's going to happen, and with some very cool action steps at the very end. Now, tonight, as we have done with most of it, we're going to ask you, uh, Ed, to have the presentation, and then he'll take the questions. As he goes through the presentation, if you have a question, please in the chat, start out your chat with the, in all caps, question, and then put your question so that Debbie will pick those up and we can ask Ed. And then after those questions, if somebody wants to raise their hand, they can, but we have muted everybody at this point. So with that, we're going to stop the share and turn it over to Ed Spire, the lead of our Restore Our Democracy NWSOFA group.
Okay, very good. So we're doing the slides a little bit, the shares a little bit differently today, and I believe that's why I wasn't able to see Bill's share. But mine is back up now, Debbie.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we got into this situation we're in right now, going back and thinking about what happened last March and what happened since then, and how the big beautiful bills got to do with this, where we are right now with in terms of the administration, the House and the Senate, and how this might end. So back in March, there was a similar situation where the budgetary authority was running out, and we needed to do something to keep the government open. The Republican put together a clean continuing resolution, which would simply meant we'll keep going for a certain amount of time with the same budgetary authority we had so far. Schumer and other Senate Democrats voted for the continuing resolution. they did this even though there were some Democratic people who objected to it because they didn't really get any kind of guarantees in return for their votes. Um, they didn't get any guarantees to prevent Trump from rescinding. You know, he's doing these rescission bills, which allow him and the Republican majority, just a clean majority, to take back money they had voted for. Schumer defended his support for doing this because Trump had been talking about firing a bunch of people during a shutdown, and he was worried that if there was a shutdown, there could be a lot of damage. So he wanted to work through it with the GOP. Uh, a lot of people in our party didn't like it, but he pushed through that, and we went forward in negotiations with the GOP after we did that, and that went nowhere. There were no real discussions, no negotiations between Republicans and Democrats on healthcare issues or social spending issues. We made several attempts, and there were a few very pretty limited talks, but they were mostly just signaling from both sides. We were saying what we wanted; they were saying what they wanted. Um, Schumer said on October 6th that there was actually nothing going on, no ongoing bipartisan negotiations. Um, Both Schumer and House Leader Jeffries confirmed that the White House is really silent. The White House has got nothing to say to us. Um, Senate Republican Leader Thune claimed on October 15th that he'd offered a vote. But Schumer immediately said, I don't remember him offering a vote. He never offered a vote to me. Um, so the negotiations over the summer went absolutely nowhere. And then with this big, beautiful bill that they passed, you see, the big, beautiful bill was put together over the summer, and we were giving them input. We were telling them that there's stuff in there that's going to be a problem. And one of them was that their the ACA premiums that subsidies that we had established back during the pandemic, we increased the amount of money that the federal government was putting into Obamacare. And that made premiums more affordable for people, and a lot more people got on Obamacare. We're that was like the Trump tax cuts. That was something that was supposed to expire at the end of this year, and we made it very clear to them that if we let that expire, it's going to hurt a lot of people. Um, we put it very bluntly. Republicans have refused to address this healthcare crisis, which is created by their own bill. And what we mean by that is that the bill that they passed ignored the ACA subsidies issue. It extended the Trump tax cuts, but it didn't extend the ACA subsidies. And we were talking about this all the time. Jeffries said it in every interview he gave. If billionaires can get permanent tax breaks in the big beautiful bill, working Americans should at least get the continued health insurance support. Um, it was clear that the big beautiful bill was generous to corporations and upper income households, and hurt our own citizens by deliberately letting the AC assistance expire. And the Republicans would just rejected everything we had to say about it. They said that they framed the enhanced subsidies as Biden COVID credits, and they thought that these benefits unfairly benefited high earners and big insurers. They described these subsidies as a giveaway to large health insurance companies. Uh, and so the big beautiful bill included what they thought was the right thing to do, which was expand health savings accounts so that people who have some money can save some money and put some money into rural health. But the ACA subsidies were not included in that bill at all. So we really pushed them on that, and they refused. They just flat out refused. They continued to portray these subsidies as uh, wasteful spending, and they only included their own healthcare priorities. So, and this is really quite hypocrisy. Shows a lot of hypocrisy. Uh, they claimed that extending the Trump tax cuts was not new spending, since we already had those tax cuts in place, even though they were destined to legally expire at the end of the year. But when it came to the AC subsidies that were also legally expiring at the end of the year, they claimed that if they extended that, that would be new spending, even though we were already spending that money. And there was during that big beautiful bill with what they call a reconciliation bill, and it was supposed to conform to the set of rules called the Byrd rules. That means that anything that's really really expensive shouldn't be in that bill. Um, and the Leader Thune in the Senate had assured us that they would abide by the parliamentarian's decision on the whether things in the reconciliation bill complied with the Byrd rule or not. Well, the parliamentarian clearly said extending the Trump tax cuts violates the Byrd rule and it should not be in a reconciliation bill. And despite, even though Leader Thune said they were going to abide by the parliamentarian's decision, they didn't. The Senate voted to ignore the parliamentarian and extend the Trump tax cuts, even though it was not the kind of thing that's supposed to be in uh, one of these bills that can be uh, put through just with a simple majority. So after the Big Beautiful passed, by September or so, our position under Schumer's leadership, our position became very hard. Uh, we warned them that refusal to negotiate on the ACA subsidies would leave about 20 million Americans facing premium increases. Uh, and we told them, you guys are deliberately stalling. You just want to you're trying to force a shutdown, is what they were trying to do. Even so, the GOP leadership just refused to enter any negotiations before a funding agreement was reached, insisting that subsidy policy should be handled separately and later. And frankly, Schumer's viewpoint is when they say later, they mean never. So, before the shutdown began, Schumer and the Senate Democrats were pushing as hard as they could on this ACA issue. And some of the Republicans acknowledged the issue privately, but they made no substance, no real offers, no formal negations prior to October. So we really thought we had no alternative but to refuse the next continuing resolution. We voted for the last continuing resolution. We got nothing for it. We got nothing between now and then. They were completely ignoring the minority party here. And the reason that we have a filibuster and the reason that we can stop the Senate is so that the minority party can't be ignored. So since the GOP just flatly refused to negotiate us, we decided not to vote for the CR. And that meant the government shut down on October 1st. We made it very clear that continuing the ACA subsidies, and we even put in the Medicaid work requirements must be addressed. However, to me, it sounds like they're asking for more than they're going to really settle for because the Medicare work requirements don't go into effect until after the midterms. So I'm sure that we would be happy to reopen the government now, just if we get the ACA subsidies restored. Or we can deal with the Medicaid work requirements later. But the Medicaid subsidies got to be restored now because now is when open enrollment is happening, and now is when people are signing up for next year's Obamacare. In a way, they kind of screwed up here. They deliberately delayed the Medicare changes until after the midterms so that they wouldn't have millions of people getting hurt by Medicaid changes voting against them in the midterms. But they didn't do that with the ACA subsidies, which means we can beat them over the head now with the ACA subsidies, which is exactly what we're going to do, exactly what we are doing. So, we're in a shutdown now. What's still open? Well, national security, public safety, all the military, border security, law enforcement. Those people are still working. Air traffic control, all that stuff. Those people are still working. Theoretically, they're not being paid. Some of them are with some tricky stuff that maybe isn't legal, but Trump is doing it anyway. But some of them are not, like the air traffic controllers are not being paid. Healthcare entitlements, Medicaid, Medicare, veterans medical services, those are still continuing. You're still getting your Social Security checks, for example. A lot of the government kind of runs on autopilot in that area. So it doesn't really hurt as much as it could. I mean, if Social Security checks stopped during a shutdown, you better believe the shutdown wouldn't happen, or it would get fixed within a couple of days. But so those things continue. Um, uh, TSA checkpoints are still running. Postal Service, well, the Postal Service is outside, it's self-funded, and it runs whether the government funded or not. Immigration Services is still running. A lot of that stuff is not being paid. There was some of it that was paid a little bit, uh, but most of it is not being paid. Now the kind of things that are closed, less critical stuff, national parks, um, public health and research agencies, operations at CDC and NIH have been furloughed. uh, Education and Labor Department, SBA, federal courts. The courts are operating to some extent, but there's not as much going on with the courts as would be before. For example, uh, you can't go in and watch court proceedings as easily now as you could before, because they don't have the people on staff working to ensure security of that kind of thing. But the courts are still running to some extent, but not as fully as they were before. The IRS is not is cut a customer service. The food safety people, uh, food safety inspections are not happening. So, and most of these people that are working without pay. About 1 million federal employees, people at the IRS, the EPA, National Park Services, furloughed or working without pay. The people that have to work include the critical workers, TSA agents, FBI personnel. These people, there's laws on the books that say that these people will get paid retroactively. There's been some discussion by Trump that maybe he won't even pay them. That would be illegal. The last shutdown, during the last shutdown, we passed a law, or after the last shutdown, we passed a law that says you must pay these people retroactively. Um, no, but there's no law that says you got to pay them now. So any payment that's happening now is some machinations that Trump is doing, borrowing money from here to there, which is not really legal, but at least some people are getting paid. Um, Members of Congress are and federal judges have to be paid because our Constitution requires them to be paid. There's no question about whether they get paid or not. But their staff isn't. The congressional aides aren't being paid, for example. Workers whose salaries come from funding sources outside the annual appropriations process, like the post office, the Federal Reserve, fee-funded agencies, those are being paid. Uh, Certain Homeland Security personnel, um, Border Patrol agents, and the likes are receiving checks covering missing paid period. Uh, that's supported by Special Department of Homeland reallocation authorized by the Secretary. It's not clear how long that kind of money would last. The same thing happened with the military and Coast Guard. Uh, they got some extra money. And in fact, I just saw in the news today that some of the extra money they got um, to pay the military's last pay period was donated. $130 million was donated to the government by an heir to the Mellon fortunes. But that was the mid-month paycheck for the military. There's another paycheck due at the end of the month, and I don't see that they have any money unless who knows, maybe some rich guy will donate another 130 million. But it doesn't look like they're going to be able to pay the military at the end of the month. And so when is all this going to end? What's going on right now? There's nothing going on right now. Nothing. Trump has told Republican Congress not to negotiate with the Democrats. Um, and at the he had a luncheon at the White House where he had all the Senate Republicans except Rand Paul come to the White House, and his message to them was, "We will not be extorted," meaning to say that they will not succumb to pressure from the minority party using the filibuster to stop government funding. Um, and they want the Democrats to bear all responsibility for this. Republican leadership in both chambers, Speaker Johnson, Senate Leader Thune, have echoed that position. Their position is there will be no negotiations until we reopen the government. And while there are some rank and file GOP lawmakers that are urging Trump to take a more direct role, he's staying out of it, and he's telling the congressional leaders to just uh, ignore us, basically. And you know, I want to make it clear that presidential leadership makes an enormous difference in this area. When we had a president who knew how Congress worked and knew how to help Congress reach bipartisan solutions, we didn't have any shutdowns during the Biden period. Uh, no shutdowns, largely because Biden prioritized bipartisan negotiations and early engagement so that we could get people together and get agreements in place and avoid this kind of mess. He always worked behind the scenes with leadership on both sides of the House to keep the government funded. He did it in September 2021, signing a continuing resolution just hours before a deadline, saying it showed how bipartisan work is possible. They did it again in 2024. He personally participated in late night calls with Speaker Johnson and Senate leaders to broker bipartisan funding deals. His White House Budget Office coordinated this work. Presidential leadership is why we have a shutdown or we don't. Biden worked to make sure we didn't have a shutdown. Trump is working to make sure we do. Uh, and now what the GOP is saying, they're saying a bunch of things that aren't really true. They're saying that if we extend the ACA subsidies, that would be $1 trillion of new spending. Well, it's really not new spending. It's spending we're already doing, just the same as the Trump tax cuts were tax cuts that we're already doing. They extended the tax cuts and didn't say that's new deficit. But when we talk about extending the ACA, they say that's new spending. It's not new spending. It's spending we're already doing. So that's basically a lie. Um, they're saying that they're doing this to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. Um, Now, there's some real data there, but it's very limited. Uh, the Government Accountability Office and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid have periodically reported some weakness in how we administer ACA subsidies. The GAO has found that we had limited assurance that all advanced premium tax credits excluded non-essential state mandated benefits, which is a technical oversight. It's not fraud. It's just that we're not managing it as well as we could. Earlier reports identified insufficient verification of income estimates and household size. Again, these are not fraud. These are our government not implementing the process as thoroughly or completely as it could. We changed our rules to fix those problems. In the middle of 2025, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services introduced new rules designed to reduce improper enrollments and strengthen the verification processes. The Kaiser Family Foundation, which studies healthcare in this country carefully, and they're bipartisan, and there's a bipartisan policy center, they both say that improper payments stem from over or underestimation of income, not deception, and they're working to improve those processes. The Treasury agrees that that roughly 20% went to individuals below the 100% of federal poverty line, often because of inaccurate income projections rather than fraud. There really is no fraud. There might be a little bit of waste because we're not managing it as well as we can, and we're working to improve that. But there's no evidence of criminal fraud, none. There is administration. There's problems in administration or documentation, and those are just errors in how we administer the program. They're not abuse. They're not fraud. Maybe it's a little bit of waste, but how much waste? 1 to 3% of total spending. So that's not much waste when you're going to take $1 trillion out of a program. Um, that's way overkill to the claim that we're wasting that much money, that's nonsense. It's just total nonsense. It's totally overstated. They're also saying that, and they're saying this a lot, that they're doing this because they don't want to see healthcare money going to what they call illegals, undocumented people. And that is just really ridiculous because undocumented immigrants are not able to sign up for ACA. You can't even an undocumented person can't even open an ACA account and look at the plans. Uh, you have to be lawfully present in the U.S. to purchase an ACA plan. Uh, undocumented people can't even get onto that website. There's a small amount of money that you could argue is indirectly supporting illegals, and that is through Medicare and hospital services. If an illegal goes to a emergency room, the emergency room is going to help. That's federal law. Federal law says anybody who shows up in an emergency room gets help. And that emergency, that's not part of ACA. That's a separate federal law. Um, and it was created some time ago. According to the analysis by the Kaiser Foundation, there may have been about 3.8 billion, which is about 0.4% of all Medicaid spending that ended up helping somebody undocumented who ended up at an emergency room. But that's not ACA. It's got nothing to do with ACA. And claiming that they're doing this on ACA to hold back money from illegals is patently false, completely false. And the money that does go to emergency rooms when emergency room personnel are maybe helping an undocumented person, that goes to labor delivery of services. And that often helps U.S. born children of undocumented mothers. That's primarily where it would be. U.S. born children of undocumented mothers. And they're not going to the care for the parents themselves. So where are we? The House is uh, confirmed that the House is out of session and all the House reps are back in their districts. And we've seen a lot of reports that a lot of the reps back in their districts are getting their head handed to them by their constituents over this issue. Uh, the Republican reps back in their home districts are hearing from their constituents that they want this fixed. And they're coming back quietly to Speaker Johnson and telling Johnson, you got to do something about this or it's going to hurt us in the next election. There are 13 moderate and politically vulnerable House Republicans, led by Rep. Kagan's and Rep. Drew, that sent a letter to Johnson October 21st. They're urging him to turn our focus to extending these ACA credits. And they're saying we see in the field that there's real risk of harm to those we represent. And the GOP moderates stress that they don't want to tie ACA subsidy negotiation to the government funding debate. That's an approach favored by us, but they do see that it needs to be taken care of somehow. And maybe there's some compromises here where we put an income cap on some of this stuff so that people who make too much money can't get as much of a subsidy. There's probably a compromise there that we could agree to. But the thing I'm hearing is that the Republicans are struggling with how to solve this ACA problem without looking like they're caving to the Democrats. So that's their problem. Pressure from Johnson is that they really have no plan to address this. State regulators are bringing this up a lot, saying that they have to start open enrollment for these state plans in November 1. And there's going to be very damaging rate hikes, and that'll be politically damaging to the GOP. They're hearing this inside. Johnson continues to resist linking the subsidiaries to funding talks. He continues to call the program a boondoggle and says there's no quick fix. Um, they've held some informational conversations, some informal conversations with White House aides about a possible post-shutdown framework to address it. But in short, frontline Republicans are feeling pressure from constituents and are actively urging leadership to craft a health subsidy fix that avoids the appearance of surrender to Democrats, but still major uh, prevents these major premium increases. So that's what we're hearing is going on in the House. In the Senate, there are some bipartisan discussions going on. There's a group about uh, not sure how big this group is, but there's a small group of senators on both sides of the aisle that are have been talking to one another. They have not yet agreed on what they think would work, but people that are looking at the Senate seem to think that this small group of senators that are talking to one another, might be the best way to find a path forward in the Senate. They're discussing solutions such as reopening government first and then holding a separate vote on ACA insurance subsidies. Um, the talks remain stalled because each of the party's leadership has maintained rigid positions. The leadership is not behind these bipartisan discussions yet. Um, Republicans insist negotiations must wait until after the government reopens, and Democrats refuse to pass their opening to pass the CR without a firm commitment on healthcare provisions. Um, Capitol Hill reporters say both lawmakers and aides still see this small group of senators that are working together as the most likely channel in the Senate for a possible compromise deal. Uh, but whatever happens in Congress, we have to worry about what Trump is going to do. Because if there's a deal in Congress and Trump doesn't buy in, well, then any Senate-led bipartisan shutdown plan or anything that coming out of the House uh, wouldn't be worth much because Trump has a track record of not caring what Congress says. He could put through another rescission process bill that would just undo whatever Congress does. Um, agencies can be effectively frozen during the period that a rescission is being considered, or he could just decide not to spend the money. He could just tell the administration, I don't care what Congress said, I'm not spending that money. So Trump and Russell Vought have explicitly pledged to pursue additional rescissions and other controls of money, despite what Congress does. So it's uncertain that anything Congress does, even in a bipartisan agreement to reopen the government, wouldn't be undone afterwards by executive action, either through these formal rescission bills or by simply refusing to obligate the funds. So any deal we get out of Congress, Trump has got to be part of that deal, or it's not worth much. He's got to be in on any agreement. Uh, Trump has just recently reaffirmed that he will not compromise. He will not be part of any Democratic giveaway. He emphasized that his administration would continue cutting items he doesn't like, even after a funding bill is enacted. Um, Senators close to him, including Thune, have echoed the message, signaling that any real progress must include agreement from the White House itself. Senate moderates might craft a politically attractive framework. They might be able to bring the House in, but unless Trump explicitly endorses it and agrees to it, it's not worth much. So, there's some pressure on Democrats too. Uh, we're facing some pressure, some voters on certain interest groups. Um, but most Democratic voters continue to urge our representatives to hold firm on extending the ACA subsidies and not reopen the government without real concessions from Republicans in this area. There's a small, growing segment, especially among our moderates and constituents affected by federal closures, like those involved in the military, demanding that Democrats find a way to end the shutdown quickly, even if it means deferring the subsidy fight. Um, we've seen reports that some Democratic leaders are starting to get more strained. Progressive members and allied advocacy groups are telling them that giving in now would waste a rare point of leverage. We have an opportunity here uh, to get somewhere with these ACA subsidies, and we shouldn't back away. I think that's exactly the right position. There are some moderate reps. Some of those states with large federal workforces, like Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico, are warning of economic fallout. So there is some pressure on Democrats as well. But a few cracks have appeared. Um, Senator Moscow from Nevada, Angus King in Maine, broke with the caucus and are willing to support the GOP clean resolution. Senator Fetterman has even suggested that the Republicans should end the filibuster and just vote the CR themselves. Thune has wisely said that wouldn't be a good idea because the Democrats are going to be in power again someday and will need to filibuster then. Um, but Schumer and Jeffries are steadfast, arguing that we have to uh, get something on these ACA subsidies done before we'll agree to reopen the government. We're seeing some pressure, but the grassroots demand to keep fighting versus the pragmatic calls to open the government are leading the pack right now. Party leadership is choosing to hold firm on healthcare as a price for ending the shutdown. So who has the advantage here between the two parties? The Democrats appear to have a modest upper hand, which you can see in polling. Several polls showed between 50 and 60% of Americans primarily blame Trump and the GOP for the shutdown, compared to maybe 37 and 40 or to 43% who blame the Democrat. And that gap is more pronounced amongst independents. But one Reuters poll found that independents fall Trump and the Republicans by a 3-1 margin. Uh, that said, both parties are taking some damage here. Both sides are getting some blame. And while Democrats benefit from the perception that they're defending the ACA subsidies, that remains popular. The continued shutdown is beginning to erode their advantage as families face economic fallout from delayed paychecks, suspended federal services. So, political analysts note that usually, historically, the opposition party in a shutdown get the blame, especially when the president's party controls the government, as the Republicans do now. Even so, some polls, such as the Newsweek poll, show that Trump's approval rating is holding steady, even though they're getting more blame than we are, um, and maybe even improved slightly amongst his base suffering. He's not yet suffering internal party backlash. And it's unlikely that he's going to come to the table until he does start getting some internal party backlash. So we hold an advantage right now in public opinion, but it's a fragile advantage. If it drags on into November, economic pain deepens, pressure could shift toward both parties compromise, blunting any clear political winner. And in fact, that might be good because that might push the parties to compromise. So when might it end? Well, analysts, market observers, they figured that the pressure is going to get worse. And around the first weekend, around right now, the first week in November, there's going to be multiple financial, political, and social deadlines converging. There's a deadline on October 24th, which was yesterday. 1.8 million civilian federal workers did not get their paycheck. On October 31st, military personnel are supposed to get their next paycheck, and who knows how that's going to happen. Uh, November 1st, open enrollment starts, and those ACA premiums are going to go up. November 15th, if it goes that long, it'll surpass the 35-day record set in 2018. Um, Congressional aides have told the Hill and USA Today they believe neither party wants to carry the responsibility for breaking that record. So what they're saying is it looks like it might get into November, but it doesn't look like it's going to go as long as Thanksgiving. Economists say each additional week of closure reduces our GDP by a tenth or 1 or 2 tenths of a percent. And our politicians don't want to see that happen. Um, the dominant forecast among Washington analysts is that it's likely to end uh, soon, maybe as soon as November 3. Recent news makes me think that's not going to happen because um, um, the House is out again for another week. The House is not going to be back in town until November 1st after this week. So I find it hard to believe it's going to happen as early as November 3rd. But there's prediction markets, people who can place bets on what's going to happen. Um, they think that it could extend into mid-November, which would be challenging the all-time duration. But some people say, this could last a really long time. I can't believe it would last up until Thanksgiving. Uh, there's going to be a lot of air travel on Thanksgiving, and if the air traffic controllers are having a sick out, that's going to create havoc that would have a terrible political price, and everybody knows that. So mid-November, I think mid-November is just going to get cleaned up. And what do we have to do? What can we do? What we need to do is to lean heavily on our federal legislators to do the right thing. We want this shutdown to end with a firm public commitment that the ACA subsidies will be restored as soon as possible. We're in open enrollment right now, and we need President Trump to be publicly committed to this compromise as well. Otherwise, he'll just undercut the deal. Only when we have these commitments should we vote to reopen the government. And there's a thing called 5 calls that you can use to help send that message to your legislators. Let me show you how 5 calls works. You go to 5calls.org, 5calls.org. And then the first thing you got to do is set your location. You type your address into this box right here and push enter and click go. And that way they know where you live and who your representatives are. Then you got to choose an issue. You type shutdown in this search box and press enter, and you'll see the list of topics they have related to the shutdown. Choose that one there. Extend the ACA premiums to tax credits. I'm going to make sure these slides get sent to all you people so that you'll have these slides. You can look at this stuff. When you choose that issue, it shows you who your representatives are, and it walks you through calling each of them. It doesn't call them for you. You got to make that phone call yourself. But they do give you a script. They give you a suggested script. And I am saying that I like the outline of the script, but the middle part of it isn't quite right because the middle part of it doesn't say Trump's got to be involved. I'm saying that you change the middle part of it to say, I'm calling to ask Rep. Schakowsky to ensure that this shutdown ends with a firm assurance that the ACA subsidies will be restored and that President Trump is also publicly committed to doing so, and then conclude the way they say. So, you make the call, and then you click one of these blue buttons down here to let them know what happened with that call, and then it takes you to the next call and the next call. So 5 calls is an easy way to walk you through the process of calling your legislators. And this is going to be useful for other things that come up in the future as well. So my call to action: use that to contact your congressional representatives, encourage them to refuse to reopen the government without firm assurance that ACA subsidies will be continued, and with full support from Trump. And talk about this stuff. Discuss these matters with your family and your community. Use what you've learned here today to help build support for leveraging our minority position to help our citizens access healthcare. And remember this: 75% of the citizens who would be hurt by losing the ACA subsidies, they live in states that voted for Trump. What we're doing here, and this is my most important message, what you're seeing here is Democrats fighting to help GOP voters while the GOP is working to hurt their own voters. That's where we are, and that's what I want you to do about it. And that's what I have for you today. So I'm going to stop sharing slides and start taking questions. Let me stop sharing. Stop sharing. Okay, we're back. All right, we got any questions?
We do, Ed. Are you ready?
I thought we might.
Well, as long as you're ready, you are going
Sure.
to get some questions. Okay. Bruce has asked, when the Dems passed the ACA subsidies during COVID, why did they not make these subsidies permanent rather than this expiration date?
Well, because that's how the compromise we had to do to get it through Congress. Um, the 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 GOP is still um, against ACA. You know, they're still constantly talking about how Obamacare is a terrible deal and it needs to be eliminated and replaced. And back when we were talking about the pandemic, um, they were still saying this crap. And the fact that the nation was facing an emergency right now gave us the possibility of responding to that emergency and getting political support to at least do that. And one of the things that's really interesting is when you get something like that through and you do give people extra help and you see how important that extra help is to them, you've just proven that government can help people's lives. You've proven that government can reduce medical bankruptcies. You've proven that government action can improve the quality of life of citizens. So once you've proven that, why would you want to undo it? Once you've proven that, you've just shown that these programs work, and we should keep doing them. So we made it temporary because that's what we could do. But now that we've shown what how much benefit for doing that, we should make it permanent.
Okay, next question is from Susan. SNAP benefits are not available in Louisiana for November. Any suggestions how I should address my senators or Representative Scalise? All three are Republicans.
Well, I mean, you can use 5 calls and just use that script. If you search shutdown, let me back up. Let me just reshare my screen for a moment and show you something here. Share this. If if I back up here in this list of issues, one of the issues, it's not on the screen right now, but one of the issues in this list, if you scroll down, is exactly that. So you could then click on that issue. You'll get a script. You could call your representatives and read that script to them. That would, oh, it's right here. Restore funding for life-saving SNAP and WIC benefits. It's right there. So once again, this 5 calls thing can can easily help you push your representatives on any issue. And you know, if you want to push an issue and it's not in this list, there's another spot where you can click. You can click and tell 5 calls, here's an issue that we need to mobilize around, and you should put that in your list. So this is a pretty useful thing, and you can use it if there's other issues you want to talk about that I didn't bring up today. Go right ahead. Use 5 calls to tell your representatives about it.
Okay, next question from Constance. It is, aren't health savings accounts ways for insurance companies to make money on the interest accrued, thus further minimizing their payouts on insurance claimed?
Well, come on. The entire idea of health insurance companies is just to make money for business owners and shareholders, uh, taking that money out of our healthcare system. Yeah, so there's really no economic reason that we should have Blue Cross Blue Shield or any of these companies involved. We should just use tax money to pay for healthcare, and then the profit that those companies take out of our system, either the one you mentioned or 100 other ways that health insurance takes money out of the healthcare system and gives it to business owners and shareholders, would go away. So yeah, you're right. and it's just one example of how the whole idea of private health insurance is a scam that takes money out of our healthcare system instead of helping people get well and stay well.
Okay, next question. Using the initials MY, what is your opinion on how much the pressure to release the Epstein files plays a role in not ending the shutdown? How can we improve messaging on the reason for the shutdown to more voters, potential voters?
Well, the relationship there is that once once Speaker Johnson calls the House back into order, he's going to have to seat the newly elected representative from Arizona. And when he seats that representative, that will be the deciding vote. That representative will cast the deciding vote to force the release of the Epstein files. And the GOP doesn't want this to happen. So he's taken advantage of the delay here to delay that. I personally don't think that that is the motivation for the shutdown. I think that he's using the shutdown to delay the Epstein files issue. But for me, the motivation for the shutdown is not let's shut down so we don't have to release the Epstein files. No, the motivation for the shutdown is Trump saying, I don't want this, I don't want to see any bipartisan agreements here. I want to force the Democrats to bend to our will. And I'm going to continue to cut what I think are Democratic priorities that do not align with my personal priorities, despite what Congress has voted for. That's why we have a shutdown. We have a shutdown because it's part of the GOP running this country the way they want to run this country, despite what most of us want. So the Epstein stuff is tangentially related, but it's not the driving factor, in my opinion.
Okay, next question is from Mark. I heard it is said this week, maybe Tom Hartman's show, that Mike Johnson's shutdown is a way of allowing Trump coup and Project 2025 to go into effect and we can't stop it. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that the shutdown enables Trump to do anything that he couldn't do anyway. He's already implemented a lot of Project 2025. The courts are trying to slow him down here and there. Sometimes the Supreme Court will let him do it anyway. But it doesn't seem to me that he's doing anything during the shutdown that he wasn't doing before or that he won't do after when the government is open. So I agree fully that Trump is being used by the extreme right to implement Project 2025 against the will of the majority of voters, and that Congress is just sitting back and letting him do it, and that the extreme right wing Supreme Court is not pulling him back as much as they could or should. But I don't believe that the shutdown makes it easier for him to do that. I mean, he said he was going to fire some people, and the courts put an injunction up about that. He's not doing anything he wasn't doing before or he won't do after. So that's where I am.
Okay, Constance has a question. Could the National Park Service have stepped in to stop the East Wing demolition had it been fully open?
Probably not. I mean, Trump ignores Trump ignores process. He ignores laws. He does whatever the heck he wants to do. And I doubt that anybody could have stopped him from destroying the East Wing. You know, there is one thing associated with that East Wing project that I don't know if people are aware of, and I want to take a moment. This is an aside from this presentation, but it's just something I want y'all to understand. The East Wing was rebuilt during World War II, and the reason it was rebuilt was not because it needed to be rebuilt. The reason it was rebuilt is because rebuilding it was a cover for the building of a command center in a bunker underneath the East Wing that was was called the Presidential Operations Center or something like that. And so this underground bunker where the president could take refuge during a crisis and continue to run the government without being worried about being killed by a bomb or something, um, is under the East Wing. And it it seems like uh, as they demolish the East Wing and build a ballroom where it was, that they're also improving that facility, that they're strengthening it, they're modernizing it. And some people have said the whole ballroom project is just a cover for what they're going to do under the bunker, just the same way the initial building, the reconstruction of the East Wing back in World War II was cover for building a bunker. So I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it's an interesting aspect that I don't think most people understand. So there is a bunker under there that is going to stay and is going to be improved as part of this whole process. And it might just be coincidence that they were planning on improving that bunker at the same time that Trump starts deciding we should have a ballroom. Uh, but that's something going on that I don't think most people know about. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Let's move on to the next question.
Okay, hold on, give me one moment. All right, we have a question from MY again. What are the implications of using anonymous private funds to pay our military?
Well, not just to pay our military, but to pay for building a ballroom, to pay for anything in government. This is a serious ethical problem. It's a pay to play problem where people are buying access, they're buying the friendship of the administration, and they understand that Trump is a guy will act on whim. Heck, he was going to send um, troops into San Francisco. And he says, I got a call from a good friend of mine out there who said I shouldn't do it. So I'm going to hold off because a friend of him asked him to do it. Maybe a friend who gave a lot of political money to him. So the fact that this administration is willing to sell government services to the highest bidder by accepting money uh, to do things in the government that should be done with public tax money is an ethical lapse of enormous proportion, and it's the kind of thing that we need to strengthen our laws around. One of the one of the major things that happens after a crisis like this is that we have the opportunity to look back at what the heck just happened and how do we prevent it from happening again. And one of the ways you can do that is to pass some additional laws when the dust settles. You might even consider a constitutional amendment or two. After the Civil War, we did 3 or 4 amendments very quickly to respond to the crisis we just went through. Well, we're going through a crisis right now. And a few years from now, when this crisis is over, we really need to think long and hard about improving our ethics legislation, improving the guardrails around our administration, maybe even making some changes to our Constitution.
Okay, we have a question from Bruce at 126. Bruce, I'm going to unmute Bruce because his question is a little bit more extensive. Go ahead, Bruce.
Just a minute.
That's fine.
Okay. This has to deal with paying people while the shutdown is going on. The Hill, which I assume is being controlled by Republicans now, has an article that is entitled Democrats Block Bill to Pay Military Essential Workers During Shutdown. And basically, the article talks about that on Thursday, the Democrats blocked a Republican-sponsored bill to pay active duty members of the military and other employees required to work during the shutdown, and it would have paid service members and employees determined by agency heads to be accepted from performing emergency work. And Thune said it would include 300 congressional employee police who work overnight. And Schumer said that this bill was a ruse and would give the White House director vote authority to pick and choose which federal departments, and that's why they were going against it. And the Democrats had an alternative bill. Of course, it wasn't in the title of the article, but they had an alternative bill to pay everyone, basically, during the shutdown. And a couple of questions I have is, one, is this Democratic strategy sound to you? And two, I don't know the rules of the House, of the Senate, but I know under Robert's rules, the Democrats would, if they apply, would have been able to amend the motion made by the Republicans at first, or done a substitute motion to see whether their motion would have passed or their amendment would have passed. And if it didn't, why isn't it better to pay some of them if you can't get what you want in terms of paying all of them?
Okay, so I'm fully aware of the issue you described. There were two competing bills in the Senate. The Democrats wouldn't vote for the Republican bill, and the Republicans wouldn't vote for the Democratic bill. The thing is this: this shutdown is going to end when there's sufficient political pressure on both sides to end it. And that political pressure comes from pain that people experience. And if you lessen the pain, then the shutdown lasts longer. So I don't think it makes any sense to pay anybody during a shutdown. Congress controls spending in this country. If Congress can't agree to a budget, then we shouldn't pay anybody. And that is the fastest way to get a shutdown to end, because then you have sufficient political pressure on everybody to get it ended. The more you decide, well, I'll pay this guy, well, I'll pay that guy, well, I'll pay this thing I like, I won't pay that thing I don't like. That gives too much power to the administration and one political party. A bipartisan solution is what we need. We need to force the GOP to come to the bargaining table and create a bipartisan solution that Trump will support. And the more you just make exceptions and pay people that you think ought to be paid, the more you're putting off this pain, the longer this is going to last. And that's where I am on that.
Okay, we have another question from Jeffrey. What does Congress fear from Trump?
Well, political problems. I mean, any congressman can get primaried. Remember the way our political system works. Our legislators are not beholden to the general election voters. Our legislators are beholden to the primary vote. 85% of the House seats are in safe districts where one party or the other is sure to win the election. And in a safe district, when the party nominees are being chosen in a primary, that's the real election. Because whoever, like here in Chicago, here in Illinois, whoever wins, Jen Schakowsky's seat is up now. And guys like this and some content creator, God help us, are contending for that seat. And there'll be a primary in March. And the person who wins that primary is going to end up in November being elected as a representative from the 9th district, period. The primary election for most congressional seats is what counts, not the general election. That means that our electors, our representatives are beholden to the views of the primary voters, not the general election voters. And the primary voters are generally the most extreme voters in each party, since it's a very low turnout affair. So when if some rep does something that Trump doesn't like, Trump will find a more extreme person to challenge him in the primary, and he'll lose his seat. That's the power that he has over Congress. And it's a flaw in our political system that gives anybody that kind of power. There's there's things we can change to fix that, but that goes beyond what we're here to talk about today. There's ways we can change our political system so that general elections really work and that the primary voters, extreme primary voters, aren't calling all the shots. But right now they are. And that's why Trump has power over Congress. And that's right. Unless representatives get so much heat that they know they're going to lose anyway, they're not going to go against Trump. And that's why we have to make sure that the GOP refs feel this pain that they are inflicting on their own voters, so that they will understand that they have to act, because otherwise they're going to lose any. Does that answer the question, you think?
I think. Chris has a question. Do most countries have the same emergency medical care for non-citizens?
I'm sure they do. Most modern Western countries do. I constantly hear of stories where somebody's on vacation and they get hurt and they go to a hospital and everything's taken care of them and it costs them nothing, and they're not even citizens of the country. They're tourists. So yes, most modern Western nations have full support for health care for everybody in their country, whether they're citizens of the country or not.
Okay. Mark's inquiry is, shouldn't a correct healthcare system treat everybody so as to prevent the spread of disease and things that plague and COVID?
Well, I mean, that's what I just said about most modern Western countries. They do treat everybody, and they do treat everybody using tax money one way or another. Either they have a system like Medicare for all, or they have heavily subsidized private insurance and heavily regulated private insurance as well. So you can solve this problem a couple of different ways. In our country, we already have a system that works for retired people. I see no reason not to extend that system to everybody. But yes, in my opinion, universal health care makes so much sense, not just because it will save lives and save money, but it will make for a healthier population, and that will make for a more productive population, a population that can contribute to the overall well-being of the country, either through work or through voluntary work or through home care or through whatever you do. If you're sick, you can't contribute to your society one way or another as much as you can when you're healthy. So health of the nation is an important thing, and we should be putting more tax dollars into making sure the nation is healthy.
Okay. Susan has a question, very short and sweet. Is Rep. Johnson at home or in Washington, D.C.?
I don't know where he is. I don't think it matters that much. The point is that the House is not in session. It hasn't been in session for weeks. I think this year they've been in session 20 days. They're not doing their job, and it's just part of the stonewalling that the GOP is doing to try and force the Democrats to bend to their will.
Okay, here's one from Mark. Get ready. Couldn't Trump be played into a bill that proclaims his greatness?
Uh,
Mark.
uh, I don't know. I can't imagine we'd really pass that the Democrats would support a bill that panders to Trump like that. We don't need that. We just need an honest bipartisan agreement. Um, and I don't think you can play Trump into that. I think you have to pressure Trump into that. I think we have to have enough enough Republican legislators screaming at Trump that you have to fix this or we're going to lose the next election. Uh, and losing the next presidential election Trump probably doesn't care about that very much because he can't run again. He's not going to be on the ballot, and he doesn't care about anything but himself. But losing the midterm elections will matter to him. You can see how badly he wants to win the midterm elections and how he's pushing red states to redistrict to try and get every little seat they can. And by the way, I don't think that's going to work because I think they're going to get slaughtered in the midterms. The typical shift in a midterm election is 13 or 14 seats. 5 seats in Texas and a seat in North Carolina are not going to overcome that, especially if California and Virginia redistrict as well. So he really cares about the midterm election. And the way to get him to agree is for enough GOP reps to tell him you have to do this or we're going to get slaughtered in the midterm election and you're going to lose the House. You might even lose the Senate. Heck, they might even lose the Alaska representative, the Alaskan senator. One of the Alaskan senators is up, and there's a Democrat who had been elected to the House in Alaska, who's polling better than this Alaska senator. So if she runs, and we're trying to push her into run, if she runs, we might actually have a shot at the Senate. So he cares about that kind of stuff. Don't no pandering is not going to get him. Threats is going to get him.
Right. Question from Nora. Why don't the Republicans just vote to continue the ACA subsidies and then let Trump just veto it? Whether something is legal or not is no longer relevant.
Well, they don't want to look like they're caving into the Democrats. That's why. And right now their problem is they know they got to do something about this, and they're trying to figure out a way to get it to happen without it looking like they're caving the Democrats. Because if they look like they're caving the Democrats, they're going to get a lot of stuff from their really radical base. The MAGA crowd is not going to want to hear that Trump caved to the Democrats. So that's what's really going on there.
Okay. Beth Ann's question. I had heard an anonymous donor gave money to the Pentagon, billionaire friend of Trump, to pay the military. I noticed Ed stated Mellon family ? I was curious of the reference. I assume Trump lies. I had also read that the Pentagon cannot use donations for payroll. Is that true? Thank you. Great presentation.
Well, I haven't researched this in depth. As I said, I just this morning before I got on this call, I saw a news article stating that some heir to the Mellon fortune had given 130 million that to the government, and that was part of what they used to pay some military troops. I don't know the answers in this area. I haven't researched anything. If it's illegal for the Pentagon to do that, I would be surprised that Trump makes them do it. That Hegseth does it anyway. Hegseth doesn't seem to care about law or process. All he cares about is making sure our military can kill people, and then he kills every boat he thinks has drugs in the Atlantic Ocean. So no, I don't think that what's legal or not is the issue here. As I said, the issue here, we did discuss this. The issue here is that we shouldn't be taking this kind of private money because it's just selling our government to the highest bidder, and it turns Trump into the kind of guy who'll do whatever this guy wants. Just like I said, he just decided not to send troops into San Francisco because a friend of his out there asked him not to. Probably a friend who gave him a lot of money.
Okay. Jennifer's question. Are the Republicans going to refuse to swear in our new representatives from the November elections due to the government shutdown?
All right. So first of all, right now, they're refusing to swear in the newly elected rep from Arizona. In the past, they, during a session, during a period like this, when the House is not really working, they still don't let the House really be in a formal recess. Congress doesn't want to really go into a formal recess, because if Congress is in a formal recess, that really does give Trump some additional powers that Congress doesn't want him to have. So what they do is they have a pro forma session every day. They gavel the House into session, and they say, we're not doing anything today, and then they recess till tomorrow. And these pro forma sessions, in the past, they have seated newly elected reps during the pro forma sessions. They don't have to wait until the House is really all back in order to seat this rep. They're just stalling because of the Epstein issue. And the state is going to sue them, and the courts are going to make them seat this rep. The idea that they would try and do that after an election to just not seat all the people they ought to seat, that would never fly. I mean, even the Supreme Court wouldn't let them get away with that. So hey, they might try anything, but that's extremely unlikely to even try it, because it's extremely likely that the courts would immediately force them to seat these refs.
Okay. Beth Ann is asking a question and/or for your assistance. She says, I cannot figure out how to get Fetterman, McCormick, or Glenn Thompson in PA to do anything.
I don't have any assistance for you in that area. Let me say one thing though about getting Congress people, Congress critters to do something. I just I'm looking at my screen and I'm seeing questions. I'm seeing comments and questions going into the chat, and I saw one where some fellow said, I'm always signing petitions. And I want to tell you, signing petitions doesn't help. Signing petitions, they ignore those petitions. The thing that works is direct contact to your legislators. Call them every day. They keep count of how many times they get called. They take those calls as the primary indication of what their constituents want. Don't just call them once. Call them at least once a week. Call them every day. Those calls are much more effective than signing some petition you see on the internet, for example. Don't waste your time with those petitions. Call them every day. That's what works. And you might think it's not working for Fetterman, but his staff is keeping count of those calls just the same way every other senator and representative do. And eventually it will work, even with him. It's harder with him because he's kind of an odd duck, but that's really the only route you have. So use it. Use that 5 calls thing.
Hey, Nancy's question. Congress agrees to the ACA tax credit. Government opens, then Trump refuses to pay the tax credit subsidies. Question.
Yeah.
What can the Dems put in place to block Trump from rescinding the congressional passed tax credit subsidies?
Nothing. The only thing that the Dems can ask for is a public commitment that he won't do it. Now, if we get a public commitment that he won't do it, and he does it anyway, then we beat him up over the head with that in the next election campaign. We say you can't trust the GOP. They make a deal knowing full well that they're going to renege on it, and they renege on it. So it's all politics. When it comes down to it, it's all politics, and we negotiate in good faith. We get the best deal we can. We must have a commitment from Trump that he will honor this deal. We know darn well that it is highly likely that he'll say he'll honor it, and then he'll change his mind and not honor it. And we know that might happen. There's nothing we can do to stop that, but we can use it against them. We can use it against them in the next election, and we will.
Okay. Chris's question. What is the chance of Bernie Sanders' bill, Medicare for All, getting discussed and approved?
Well, I don't think it'll get discussed and approved during this administration. I think that would be a miracle. That's just the GOP is not going to support that. This GOP is not going to support that. We're going to have to get past this MAGA crisis before we can start running this government in a sane manner. So we'll see what happens in 2028. But there's no way we can make such a large change before we slay this MAGA dragon and get a real working partner in the other party. We have to have two parties that actually care about helping American people. And if you have one party that is where the GOP is right now, where they want to take the country backwards to a time when white male Christians ran the country, you're not going to get anywhere. So I don't hold out any hope of making progress on something as big as Medicare for all right now, or for the foreseeable future. We have bigger fish to fry than that. We have to make our democracy work again. Once we get our democracy working again, we can have a chance to discuss that kind of thing.
Okay, I've caught a few more questions in the chat since I've asked you that last one. And let's see, Chris is asking, at this point, with Congress doing practically nothing or stopping him from anything, do you think he will try to get rid of Congress somehow?
Nah, he can't get rid of Congress. I mean, the basic structure that the Constitution lays out, our courts are going to. There's no way our courts are going to allow that. You know, in a way, our government is structured based on how our Constitution defines our government, and changing our Constitution is very hard. Yes, our Constitution is effectively changed anytime SCOTUS reinterprets it. So SCOTUS can effectively change our Constitution, but not in such a major way as to saying Congress no longer has the power of the purse. So no, I don't foresee any possibility that anything like that will happen. But what could happen, what is possible, is that elections will be corrupted to the point where Congress will always just do what Trump wants, what the administration wants. Congress could be effectively permanently neutered by creeping authoritarianism in our country, and we need to stop that. We need to stop it starting in November of 2026. That's where I am.
Okay, Janet has a question, actually kind of two questions, one being possible comment, and I'll go with the question comment first. How do we open up people's minds about how there will be impact to all? Overloaded ERs, increased premiums, spread of disease. And her question is, when is Mikey up for re-election? Can we get involved in voting him out?
Johnson?
I believe so.
Okay, so all House reps are up every 2 years. So Johnson is up for re-election. I don't think that. Let me answer the Johnson question first. He's from a reliably red state, Louisiana, and I think that it might be possible to get him out by primarying him with somebody even worse than him. I don't see that's much help. I mean, look, one of the problems in our Congress is there's been so much turnover that for most people in Congress, especially in the House, this is the first time they've ever had to deal with a government shutdown. We are lacking experienced leadership in Congress. Congress is in part dysfunctional because of that. Getting rid of leaders isn't the answer. Bringing another inexperienced leader in doesn't help. What helps is the political pressure to cause Congress to conform to the will of the voters. So I'm not interested in interfering in GOP politics to try and get one of their leaders shot down, who would only be replaced by somebody equally incompetent and equally under the thumb of Trump. That's not helpful. So don't go there. Go to the first thing you said, which is how do we get GOP voters to put pressure on their legislators? Well, we don't have to do a lot. I mean, a number of Democratic consultants suggest that the best thing we can do is stand back and let the GOP leadership hurt their own voters. And their own voters will get the message. I've talked to plenty of people who voted for Trump and are banging their heads against the wall now, knowing that they voted for what's happening and they don't like what's happening. So, and let me say this about that. Do not say I told you so to these people. Do not say it's your fault all this is happening. Don't do any of that. It doesn't do any good. Say, isn't it terrible what's happening, how it's hurting you and me? Let's get together and fix it. That's the right way to respond to this situation. So, in your community, make it clear that you are there to help these people who need help. If the food bank in a red state is out of money because the red state won't fund it and the federal government doesn't fund it anymore, kick in a few bucks to your local food repository and help these people. Make it clear that you want to help these people. Make it clear that we're all hurting together and we all need to work together to fix what's hurting us. And to me, that's the best way to open people's minds about this situation. Thank you.
Okay, Ed, there are a few more questions in the chat, but would you like to take the hand raises? We have two.
No, I want to deal with the chat questions first.
Okay.
We'll take the hand raises when we're done with the chat questions.
Okay, we have one from Kim. Do members of Congress care about phone calls from people who are not their constituents, or is our only leverage with our own senators and reps?
Yes, they don't care about people who don't vote for them. They care about two people. They care about people who vote for them, and they care about people who give them money. I suppose you might call them up and say, I'm not in your district, but I contributed to your campaign. And here's what I think you should be doing. That's not the best approach. The best approach is to lean on your representatives. Now, look, if you really are a big donor, if you gave $1,000 to a candidate in another district, you could call up and say, I gave you $1,000 because I thought you would do the right thing, and you're not. And I'm not going to give you another $1,000 unless you do the right thing. But I mean, you got to be a significant donor for that to work. But mostly you deal with the people with your own representatives.
Okay, Constance has a question for you. Steve Bannon brags about Trump's staying in for a third term. He's been both right and wrong before. What do you think?
I look, first of all, I do a lot of social media work just so I stay on top of this kind of junk. And somebody sent me a recording of an interview with Bannon. And what did he say? He said, we have a way to do it, but he wouldn't tell us what it is. And I'm sure he wouldn't tell us what it is, because as soon as he tells us what it is, we're going to tell him how that's not going to work. This is not going to work. Trump is not going to run again. No state is going to put him on the ballot when the Constitution clearly said he can't run again. So this is nonsense. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Janet is asking, how many billionaire donors do Democrats have?
We have a number of them. And we even have some billionaire politicians like our own governor. I would say that if it takes a billionaire to win an election, at least we've got some. Um, but the real answer is to get the the undue impact of big money out of our politics. So we have some donors, um, maybe not as many as they do. Um, but then again, we also have grassroots support, and we have a majority. We have a majority of the country. At this point, we clearly have a majority of the country on our side with respect to the fight that's going on right now in terms of the shutdown and our support for public health funding.
Okay. Chris is asking, does Edward have a podcast or online newsletter?
No, I do this once a month through NWSOFA. I maintain a Facebook presence. I'm an old guy. I'm an old white guy. Come on. I don't do TikTok. I don't do the things that the young folks do. I have a Facebook page. You can find me easily at Spire. I have there's a social media operation called Quora, Quora, I think it is. Uh, and that's an area where I maintain a discussion group called Practical Politics. But that's it. I have a Substack presence, but there's nothing going on with it. Um, I regularly post commentary to Facebook and to Quora, and I have good discussions there. And I will tell you that those discussions are important to me because they help me stay on top of what's going on. They help me sharpen my arguments. They help me stay on track. These arguments sometimes correct me when I'm going the wrong way. And frankly, when I put together a presentation like this, um, it took me 4 hours to write this presentation. But that's because I spent 3 weeks listening to news programs, reading newsletters, discussing things on social media, and so it's not an overnight success. It's a lot of legwork. It's a lot of time spent staying up on what's going on. Listen to um, uh, listen to Heather Cox Richardson, what she posts. Listen to what Paul Krugman posts. Listen, if you have SiriusXM, find the POTUS channel and listen to Julie Mason's show from in the afternoon. She interviews politicians and reporters from both sides of the fence. What's most interesting is interviewing reporters and getting the inside story of the work they do to tell the truth of what's going on in our government. Do these kinds of things. You can find me on Quora, you can find me on Facebook, but you can also subscribe to a whole bunch of different newsletters that are very useful. You can read The Hill. I don't think The Hill is necessarily controlled by Republicans. Any news source may end up having an article that's biased in one direction or the other. But you can stay informed not just by listening to me, but by following the kinds of things I do. I know that in my retirement, I spend half of my time following this kind of stuff, and I know a lot of people don't have the time to do that, which is why I do this once a month to bring people up to date on what I'm seeing. Anything else
Okay.
in the chat?
Oh, you asked a loaded question there, Ed. MY is asking, many have decided to step away from engaging at all, stating that they think the entire system needs to collapse so it can be rebuilt. Do you have a response you'd be willing to share for this? Thank you.
Well, I think the pain endured by our population should the entire system collapse is drastic, and it's unavoidable. And I think it's irresponsible to just say let's burn it all down and start over. Uh, that will hurt too many people. It'll hurt you if you don't think that moving to anarchy and trying to rebuild this country's constitution from scratch won't hurt you. Oh, it will hurt you. It'll hurt a lot of people. So that's it. As far as I'm concerned, that's a totally irresponsible viewpoint.
Okay, well, let's see what we got here. JW, do you think Trump will leave if voted out of office? I have no doubt that he and the GOP will cheat, lie, and break the law to remain in power. We're going back to Steve Bannon did an interview with The Economist recently that
Yeah.
stated that, Trump is going to be president in 2028.
Yeah.
Alternatives to the 22nd Amendment. He also stated that the GOP has a plan for this. That kind of language is very concerning.
I agree it's concerning, but it's bullshit. It's nonsense. There's no way the Supreme Court would support Trump staying in office after losing the election. The real concern here is not him staying in office after losing the election. The real concern here is him screwing with the election to the point where he wins again, where a GOP candidate wins again, and it won't be him. He won't be on the ballot. It'll probably be his vice president, which could be worse than him. Um, you know, uh, look, I run a I'm very involved in running elections. I run an early voting site. Um, I stay involved in election administration, and there was there's a group called the um, Election Sabotage Defense Group. I can't quite remember the name of the initials right now, but we had a call the other day where we talked about uh, how we're going to make sure that we don't have ICE agents hanging around outside polling places stopping people from voting. And and I've also worked with the League of Women Voters. We're in active discussions with Cook County Voting Unit and Chicago Voting Unit on these very issues right now. So if you want to be concerned about something, be concerned about how fair our elections are going to be, how redistricting might damage them, how gerrymandering might damage them, how federal agents or National Guard might damage them. Those are the things to be concerned about and work on. Don't worry about Trump running for a third term. He can't. Don't worry about Trump not leaving the White House when he loses. He will. He'll have to. Worry about our elections. Worry about the foundation of our democracy. That's where your efforts should be going.
Okay, Bruce has a question. The talk about the reason for the shutdown is the ACA subsidies, but the Dems' demand to the Republicans also included no cuts to Medicaid and a commitment
Right.
to no recessions.
Right.
If the Dems get a deal only on the ACA, should they accept that and not insist on other demands?
Okay. Here's my position on that. First of all, when you go into a negotiation, you always ask for more than you're willing to settle for, so that you can say, okay, I'll give you that one, you give me this one. So I would give the Medicaid work requirement one now. The Medicaid work requirement doesn't kick into effect until 2027. So we can work on that one next year. The ACA thing kicks in now. We got to work on that one now. So I would be willing to take a compromise that restores the ACA subsidies and punts on the Medicaid work requirements. But I can't. I also have to have agreement that they won't use the rescission or impoundment to negate the deal, which is why Trump has to be involved. So that's my answer to what I personally believe the Democrats should accept as a deal here to reopen the government.
Okay. Josephine's question. A past shutdown was ended due to actions of air traffic controllers.
Yeah,
Couldn't that happen again?
you betcha. I think it's the most likely way that it's will end, especially since we'll be coming up upon Thanksgiving. And I tell you, if this shutdown goes into Thanksgiving and the ATCs are sick out and Thanksgiving travel is a nightmare, that will hurt the Republicans, and they know it. That will hurt them terribly, and they know it. So this is not going to last that long. And I think that the ATC issue is one of the primary drivers of getting it resolved.
Yes. Janet's question. What are we going to do to protect our votes from DT's interference?
Okay. Um, the kind of interference that DT can cause is to suppress turnout. With ICE agents or National Guard hanging around outside polling places, you might see some people who want to vote who decide not to. And what to do about that? Get them to take mail ballots. That's what you do about that. Push mail ballots really, really hard. They can vote from the privacy of their home. Um, they can authorize a white male Christian to take their ballot to an early voting site and stick it in a drop box. Somebody that ICE won't hassle. And then they can vote. Trump can't fool with well, he can't really fool with the election anyway, other than suppressing turnout like that. He can't hack voting machines. He can't get ballots to not be counted. Courts routinely support our democracy in that respect, and that kind of stuff almost never even gets up to SCOTUS. SCOTUS doesn't generally weigh in on that kind of stuff because they don't want to be seen as directly interfering in our elections. They did that once. They had a lot of grief over it. They don't want to do it again. So that's to me, that's the real solution here. And then once again, as I say, I'm heavily involved in election administration, and there's two things that we're doing. One is we're going to push mail ballots harder than ever, and two is in vulnerable precincts, we're going to try and have volunteers around that can diffuse or minimize federal agents, perhaps by finding ways of escorting people into the polling place through back alleys or something where they can get into the polling place without coming into contact with ICE. So those are the kinds of efforts that we need to do to secure our democracy in the upcoming elections. And I frankly, I don't think that we need to worry too much about this for the primaries. I think that the real threat to this is in the general election, which is more than a year away. I mean, who knows where we will be with all of this by then? We very well might have the courts nailed this stuff down by then. So, but we're thinking about it, and we want to be prepared for it in case it's a problem. And we got some ideas, but the biggest one you can do is encourage people to vote by mail.
Okay, and I believe
I
this
know
is
that's good because I only got 10 minutes left.
See, you were reading my mind or I was reading yours. Beth Ann's, and appears to be the last question in the chat that I can find. Mark Cuban is helping Trump with his prescription plan / drug company. I thought Mark Cuban was a Democrat.
Well, he's kind of an independent. I mean, he's I wouldn't call him a Democrat, but he's not a MAGA. And if he's trying to do something that will actually help our citizens, I can understand that. But you know, I haven't looked at this closely, so I can't really address this in depth.
Okay.
But if that's that, then let's deal with the two people that have been patiently waiting there, putting their hand up instead of putting their question in the chat.
Okay. We can do that. And I know Bruce was up, but I don't know if he still has a question. So we do still have two other people with their hand up. Ellery, how are you?
Can you
I'm
unmute
fine.
yours?
I wanted to point something out about the HSA question. Apparently, the person didn't understand how HSA works. Health savings accounts, the money you take from your paycheck and put in your health savings account is not held by an insurance company. It's held by the administrator of the HSA plan, which is usually like an institution like Fidelity or something like that. So any interest that would be accrued on that money is not going to an insurance company. You use that money when you have out-of-pocket expenses to pay them so that the money you're paying is pre-tax. So you're saving on the taxes for the money that's going into that HSA. So
Fine.
that,
Let's thank you very much for this clarification. Let me ask you a follow-up. Um, so, so this is essentially an investment account you can open with a broker, and if interest is earned or if capital appreciation occurs, that money goes right back into that account, correct?
right.
Right. So this is not an area where um, health insurance companies are taking money out of the system. But I will comment that this only helps people who can afford to put money into an account. And there's a large percentage of our population that cannot afford to do that.
Well, that can be very true. I mean, my daughter does it, and she doesn't make a ton of money, but she's doing it, she's very careful with her finances, and she knows what kind of medical expenses she's going to have, and so she only puts enough money in there to cover that.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the clarification, sir. I
Sure.
appreciate it. Let's see what Magda's got on her mind.
Okay, Magda, go ahead.
You need to unmute, Magda.
There she goes.
Thank you. Ed, you put an posting on the Facebook that vote by mail and take the best way is to take your ballot to a early voting site. And a friend of mine who lives in the south, in Champaign area, said that in their area you cannot. You have to mail it. There is no precinct which is going to accept the field in vote by mail, as we do it in Chicago, in the Cook County. Is this to turn in the finished vote by mail ballot to an early voting site? Is this a local issue or it's a state issue?
Okay, it's local. Every election jurisdiction establishes their own rules.
Okay.
What I said about bringing your ballot to an early voting site,
Yes.
that applies in the Chicago municipal area. Suburban Cook County and the city of Chicago both maintain ballot drop boxes at their early voting sites.
Yes.
Other jurisdictions may do it differently. Now, I would be surprised if Champaign didn't have a way of accepting a ballot, not on election day, but prior to election day, without using the USPS. And I, through Indivisible, Illinois, I have contacts down there, and I will ask them and
Thank
find
you.
out.
Thank you.
And I will have that answer as part of what we send out after this is over.
Yes.
But I wouldn't use the mail to return your ballot unless you have no alternative. If you have an alternative, if you can bring it to a county office, if you can bring it to a drop box, I would do that because then you know for sure that
Yeah.
thing has been delivered.
The problem
Thank you,
with
Magda.
drop boxes in Chicago area and in Cook County is that they are open 8 to 5, I think. I don't remember exactly, So people who work have a difficult time. You have to turn it in yourself or nominate somebody, and that's more complicated. So maybe.
Well, it's okay. So first of all, we're open 9 to 5, 7 days a week.
Okay.
Some locations are open till 7 p.m. on the second week.
Okay.
And you can nominate, you can just sign your ballot over. You sign on the back.
Yes.
I authorize my buddy to drop this for me.
Yes.
And as I said, if you're a person of color, you can nominate a white male Christian to bring your ballot in, and ICE won't hassle them. I think that's the best thing for us to do right now. But I will check with my friends in Champaign and find out what's going on down there.
Thank
you, Magda.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have Susan.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
Susan, let's take Susan as the last one because I really am running out of time here.
Yes. Okay, Susan, go ahead.
I want to add to what was said about the HSA account. I'm not sure everyone is aware, but if you are eligible for it, you can often use it to buy things like Band-Aids, and it effectively gives you, if your combination of your federal and state tax rate, say, is 30%, 20%, whatever it is, it effectively gives you a 20 or 30% discount on Band-Aids. So whatever you can afford to put into an HSA and then use it to buy any HSA eligible expenses, I very much advocate doing that or looking into that because it can save you money directly.
So thank you, but let me ask you about the mechanics. I mean, suppose I have an HSA account with Fidelity, for example, and I need to buy something that costs some money. That's what's the mechanics here? Do you buy it and then send a receipt for it to the fiduciary that's holding the account, and they send you the money? How does this work?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that depends on your administrator and what your plan is. I know, for example, my particular plan, they give you a Visa card, and you use that Visa card to go into Walgreens and buy Band-Aids.
Yeah, well, what prevents you from
And
going
you
to using?
save your receipts because you can always be asked by the IRS, did you use that money to buy Band-Aids or did you use it to buy, I don't know what, sugar
Grocery,
at
groceries.
Walgreens. But usually also the boy, I can't say this for sure, but I suspect that the retailer also won't approve those cards if they're used to buy things like sugar. Because I know at least Walgreens has FSA and HSA eligible items and non-eligible items. So it's as
Okay.
easy as using a Visa card to pay for things.
Great. Well, great. Thank you for that clarification. I'm glad to help people know that this is something useful for them. Okay, well, I'd like to wrap it up now. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for the great questions. I'm glad to help everybody understand what's available, and we're all in this together. So please do what I suggested. Call your reps. Call them every day if you can. You might call them about a different topic. I mean, there's a bunch of different topics listed there on 5 calls that you could hammer them with, but hammering them repeatedly is how we make our democracy work. Thank you all for coming today. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you, Bill.
And the video is on the NWSOFA.org website under the YouTube channel tab. Just hit live video. It's the last one up. Thank you so much,
Hey, thanks
Ed.
a lot, Bill.
Great
Thank
job.
you, Bill.